Welcome to
Pork chop sandwiches!
Welcome to Butcher Block Horror Podcast, where we
Who
exhume
wants a
horror
body
movies
massage?
from the past and cut into what makes them so delectable. I'm Kane.
Wait, I'm JD, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
JD.
cool. Sounds good. I'll do it.
I'm Joe, and I would argue that this horror movie from the past is not delectable and is in fact just soggy and disappointing.
Okay.
But it's got hella shower scenes.
Today,
It does.
we're going to be throwing the Slumber Party Massacre onto the slab.
Slumber Party Massacre!
And apparently, we don't have any portions to force feed to you that are favorites, but we are going to shove this into your face.
Let's just not do this. Let's just
Yeah,
go
we're
out
doing it.
and enjoy the fresh air. And
If
not...
you enjoy the taste of these feasts of fright, then give us a like and subscribe. Be sure to click the bell.
Yeah.
Consider taking a look at our website. We give you brainworms.com. This will allow you to take a look at other projects we're working on, including our sister, cousin, uncle podcast, Brainworms.
Yeah, and the other projects that we occasionally talk about doing and never get around to.
It's like there's not enough time in the day or something.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll also let you go to our Patreon so that you can, not sure why, but you can dump some money into this incredibly distressing podcast.
Is that what we are? Are we distressing?
We're very upsetting.
Damn.
Well, Brainworms definitely is. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We'll just let the listeners know that your neighbors are weirdos.
Yeah,
But that's what you get for living in Trump country.
I feel like most people's neighbors are weirdos, except for mine. Mine are pretty cool.
that's true. Listeners, it's May 8th at time of recording. And for some reason, my neighbors are shooting off fireworks.
Because they don't know. They think it's the 4th of July. They're living in the future.
Because they're having a hoot and a holler, and my microphone is picking that up.
These are high anxiety people we're talking about. They're living in the future.
So if it sounds like I'm recording this during the Blitz and the Germans are shelling while we're trying to record a horror podcast,
9!
then that's why.
All right. Well, there's also a link to our Patreon where you can put some money into this project and
Yeah.
watch it grow.
You just made us sound like a chia pet.
That seems like that might be a little disingenuous.
I don't know.
Whatever they invest into this project, I'm just going to use on,
Your nose candy?
well, that and caramel apple candy canes.
That sounds delicious.
Oh, good. That sounds really
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
I'm going to get those.
I don't like
and
mint
a lot
candy
of cocaine.
canes. When I was a kid, I realized there were other flavored candy canes, and it just shook me to my core.
Right,
I was
yeah,
like,
that's the kind of thing
wait,
that'll blow a
I
kid's
could have a
mind.
tangy candy cane, like a fruit tang, like a twangy. Yeah, it was just very exceptional. And I'm not a big fan of mint, so I was like, wow, this is something else.
You know, I need to say this,
Uh-huh.
and I've already said it on my social media platform, and I'll say it again tomorrow night when I stream. If you're listening to this and you're an adult and you don't have a medical reason why you can't get the vaccine, fucking get the vaccine.
Yeah, you probably
Because
should.
we need to hit a target number of close to 90%
Right.
of adults getting the vaccine
Mm-hmm.
to reach herd immunity. So I know that Americans don't like to do shit unless there's a parade for it. So just think of going and getting your vaccine as the parade being thrown for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the not, or at least the not in the near future eradication of your species.
I mean, honestly, if it was going to be, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Let's just get the fucking vaccine, you chuds. All right?
Is it chuds or chodes?
Chuds.
Chuds, definitely.
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
Yup.
Noted.
But yeah, you know what, JD? Why don't you give us a synopsis overview?
Or don't.
I'm gonna.
The Slumber Party Massacre, which I watched the entirety of this film and know everything that happened in it.
Hell yeah. Before I go on about the synopsis, let me just mention quickly that the film had 2 release dates, one of which was September 10th of 1982, and that was released in LA, The other was November 12th in 1982 in New York City.
New York City?
I know, right? And now I'm going to dip my chips into the runtime. That was 76 minutes. The film had a budget of $220,000, and it grossed $3.6 million at the box office. The synopsis.
Hold on. Let's back that up just a little bit. It grossed how much?
3.6 mil.
The hell you say?
This movie had
watched this movie?
This movie was bumping.
The fuck?
We're talking about 1982, like 3.6 mil.
Yeah, that's money.
That's a chunk. So
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
Right?
Too bad. Well, what's the synopsis? I'm sure that if it made that much money, maybe it's just, we're future minds unable to really dissect what's going on in 1982 that made this movie a cultural phenomenon.
Such hot shit, yeah. I think it was just the nice butts in the trailer, and it sent people like in hordes to the... Because sex sells.
But it was the 80s. Every movie was super horny.
Yeah.
And here's an interesting fact about the film. Before it was titled The Slumber Party Massacre, it was titled Don't Open the Door.
It actually had a couple of titles over its lifespan.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
This is the easiest synopsis I've ever had to come up with because the film had the most basic plot of any we've ever reviewed here at the Butcher Block. A crazed maniac with a power drill.
It was a giant power drill as well. It's not just...
Yeah, that was
when you think
like
of this,
a hole
listeners,
saw. Yeah, that was a serious device.
This is not a drill that you put some shelving up with.
Yeah.
Like you could lobotomize like 4 people at the same time with this drill.
Exactly. That's a great descriptor, JD.
3 layers of skulls. Just...
Yep.
Yeah. It's like when Sergeant Slaughter from G.I. Joe like punched one cobra in the face and he'd knock down like 12 of them.
Sure.
They would domino backwards and all hit the ground. Like
this was a giant drill, is what we're saying.
It was hella fucking drill. Anyway, this crazed maniac appears uninvited to a young girl's high school pajama party.
It's a slumber party.
Okay, well, what's the difference between a pajama party and a slumber party?
Yeah, I think they're the same thing, Kane.
Did they sleep much? Did you witness sleeping?
I mean, they didn't sleep because there was a psycho killer with a drill trying to murder them.
Yeah, but their intention was to sleep.
I saw more pajamas than I saw sleeping, so
Yeah, but was the movie called The Pajama Party Massacre?
It was not.
Okay,
but
so, yeah.
I go against the grain. I mean, how long have you known me?
I have never met you before in my life. This is our first interaction.
That's how it feels right now.
What is this episode?
You know what? No, you're right. Okay, pajama party, slumber party.
Piss party.
It's that
Lemon
simple,
party?
folks. It's somebody meant them harm, and they had hella drill. So anyway, the director of this debacle is none other than Amy Holden Jones. Holden Jones was born 1955 somewhere in the United States of America. Known by most as an American screenwriter and a director of films.
Right on.
Yeah. She's quite a pioneer, in my opinion, and we'll get into that. Most of her work is in writing. Amy only directed 4 films, one of which was a horror film, and that's the one that I'm speaking on right now.
All right, well, I mean, the other ones don't really matter then.
Nothing really matters.
But I suppose if I don't mention anything else she's done, then this will be the shortest episode to date.
I'm going to talk a lot about the writer, so...
Here's something, though, I could throw this in. She did some writing, and one of the films that she wrote for was The Relic that came out in 1997.
Oh, that movie was great.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, The Relic was good.
So aside from that, no horror, but she did in fact write the screenplay for Indecent Proposal in 1993.
Huh.
So a lot of people are familiar with that, and I figured I'd mention it because it's just very well known. And that's based off of Jack Engelhardt's book of the same title.
Oh, was Jack Engelhardt's version of it a horror book?
No, it was just an Indecent Proposal with a...
Have you noticed that when it's a not horror thing that Kane likes, he'll throw it in? But when we do it, he's like, no, only horror. Horror only always.
Yeah, and he's quick with it too. He's ready to chop it down.
Were you a big fan of Indecent Proposal?
I'll tell you this much: the moment that I think I saw Sharon Stone, I was like, okay, I'll watch this.
Sharon Stone is in that movie?
I thought so. No. Oh wait, what am I thinking of?
I'm thinking that you're thinking of a different movie altogether.
Yeah, Indecent Proposal is I'll pay you $1 million to have sex with my wife.
No, it was I'll pay you $1 million to let me have sex with your wife.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, that was Demi Moore, Robert Redford, and
okay.
Oh, I always forget his name. Woody Harrelson.
Anyway.
Yes, so here's the difference, Joe. No one gives a shit about Indecent Proposal. When I mention something, I actually enjoy the thing that I'm mentioning it.
You don't know that. JD might really like an Indecent Proposal.
I asked him, and he didn't even know what movie it was.
That's true.
I didn't even know what fucking movie it was because my brain is like mush. You know, I smoked a lot of weed in the 90s.
Right? I understand what you're getting at, Joe, but what I'm saying is like, if you're putting forth something that you really like, that you've enjoyed, then, you know,
that's
unless
not
it's
true.
David Lynch.
I was going to say, because every time I bring up David Lynch, you yell at me, and I genuinely love his movies.
I don't yell at you for it not being horror. If we were to go back and listen to all of those episodes,
nobody wants to do that.
You would just hear me pissing and moaning because of how much I hate David Lynch films.
Right.
It has nothing to do
Full
with
disclosure,
the fact that it's not horror. Oh, go ahead, JD.
I thought I was talking about a completely different movie, so let's just go ahead and strike that from the record.
No, it's in the record.
Let me go on about something else that is.
I'm going to go do my own podcast about David Lynch.
Do it.
Well, so I'm about to drop a movie title that Kane could go off and do his own podcast about because Amy also wrote, well, she actually co-wrote the screenplay for the zany, lovable dog movie Beethoven.
How does that have anything to do with horror?
Well, here's the thing, and I'm setting you up. It's like you're a volleyball team right now.
I've got some news for you about Beethoven.
Joe just bumped the ball, and I'm setting the ball so you could spike the ball, and here's why.
I don't want to edit this episode.
Joe, I'll give you $5
I threw this in
this episode.
The $5 that I give you every month on Twitch.tv.
Yes.
That's awesome. Hey man, you gotta recycle and however that goes. So Beethoven, right? So I mentioned this so Kane can remind all of us that Beethoven is dead.
Oh, I've got more than that, buddy. See, you came at this thinking I was going to tell you that one dog in that movie Beethoven was dead.
What?
But there were actually 12 Saint Bernards that played Beethoven in that movie. Yeah, there were fucking 12 of them. Do you know when that movie came out?
Yeah.
Like 1992. Do you know what that means? All 12 of those Saint Bernards are definitely fucking dead.
So it's kind of like the cats from Pet Sematary, all of which are dead now.
Yeah. But instead of it being 9 cats that are definitely dead, it's 12 Saint Bernards that are definitely dead.
How about the animals in the classic 90s film Homeward Bound?
No, we're not. No. I'm stopping this now. Did Amy have anything to do with Homeward Bound?
No, she had nothing to do with it.
Okay, yeah, Joe, shut up.
I just don't want to talk about Slumber Party Massacre.
We're doing it. We're talking about it. But yeah, no, I'm glad that you brought up Beethoven, JD, because I
wanted to give you that opportunity despite the pain and suffering this causes me to think about the dead beasts that were featured in these films.
Not beasts, lovable, cuddly, beautiful Saint Bernard dogs. 12 of them. Let loose this mortal coil.
I always say the word beast, and it's like a term of endearment for me. So an animal, if I refer to it as a beast,
okay,
that means I really appreciated it.
There are 12 less Saint Bernards in this world that you now know existed to make that one movie because you wanted me to talk about one dead Saint Bernard. And
I mean, it wasn't because of the movie. It wasn't like Walt Disney's Lemmings.
Anyway,
no, but yeah,
we're showcasing female directors, and so right now,
yeah, it would have been really cool if we had said that at the top of the episode.
We don't need to say it at the top of the episode.
I'm saying it now. Amy Holden-Jones, the director of this film. Here's an interesting thing, and this person was so determined and driven in her career. Amy was scheduled to be the main editor on Steven Spielberg's film E.T. And the date to start E.T., it just kept getting pushed back due to complications while Steven Spielberg was part of the production for Poltergeist. So, E.T. got pushed back, and it was well over schedule. It was well over, well past due. So anyway, Amy, she's an eager 27-year-old. Anyway, she decided to pick up and walk on the project of E.T. in order to pursue a film of her own. And that's the Slumber Party Massacre.
Fuck yeah.
So it's like, that's a massive, thing to walk, turn away from to go do your own thing. So I, respect her for that, and I see her as a pioneer.
Yeah. I mean, I wish it had been a better final product.
Well, I mean, the thing to keep in mind is that, we're showcasing these films, not even necessarily because they're great films. I think that they obviously live in a certain area of horror.
Sure.
I thought Near Dark was actually a good movie, but it's a cult classic. Like it's
Right.
a movie that has acquired a cult following.
I like Near Dark.
I think it's important to note that the budget for the Slumber Party Massacre was what did you say, JD? 200,000?
Yeah, 220,000.
Yeah. So the budget was 220,000 and it pulled in 3.6 million.
Yeah.
Women weren't really given any opportunities to direct during this time.
Almost none. They were editors. They had other roles, not directors though. And that's, the early 80s. That's why she's so significant.
Yeah, as much as maybe this movie is not great.
I hate this movie.
The movie I watched all of. I watched the whole thing. It still is. It's a rung on the fucking ladder that our society has forced women to climb.
That's fair.
Right.
So that's why we're talking about this movie, Joe. Not because it's a great film, but because
and the fact that it was her directorial debut, and at that time, like you said, very few to no opportunities for women to direct a film, let alone,
I mean, I appreciate that. I do. I just want it to have been good. So that I would enjoy it and derive some sense of joy and pleasure from watching it.
Right.
And not just tired disappointment.
Right. Okay.
Sure. Understood. But yeah, Amy Holden Jones is also the producer of the Slumber Party Massacre, being that I usually cover the producers.
Right, yeah.
Cover your producer.
And this is actually her only credit as a producer. So that's all I have to say about that. Now, there was a co-producer for this film, and that was Aaron Lipstadt. Aaron was born November 12th, 1952 in Connecticut. Producer and director known for City Limits in 1984 and Escape from New York in 1981.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was kind of a fun movie. Lipstadt was also credited for being involved with the production of Galaxy of Terror, a horror movie from 1981, and Saturday the 14th, which I know we've referenced in season 1. I don't know anything about that film, but it's a comedy horror spoof, also of 1981. And he also produced a sci-fi flick titled Battle Beyond the Stars that came out in 1980.
Okay.
So yeah, that pretty much covers the director and producers.
Cool.
All right. Well then, Joe, why don't you get to the thing you're excited about?
Yeah, this is the only thing about this movie that I care about, and it actually is another reason that I hate this movie.
All right.
Do you hate it as much as Spasms?
I kind of hate it more because
my
Spasms
goodness.
was a bad movie, but it was a bad movie in a way that you had fun watching it.
Right.
I didn't, but go ahead.
Well, part of the anecdotes behind, the whole Oliver, what's his name?
Oliver Reed.
Oliver Reed, correct. So there was a lot of anecdotal fun stories behind that movie because of him.
Right.
So I understand that being maybe a little more.
But
Sure,
fuck Peter
and
Fonda.
Spasms, and I don't want to go too deep onto this tangent, but Spasms was at least enjoying itself.
Right.
Nothing went deeper on Peter Fonda than his bell bottoms in the crack of his ass. Because
stupid sunglasses.
And I'll get into it. I'm going to wait until the end to really just cut loose on why I'm so upset about this movie.
Yeah.
But Spasms at least had fun in its not being very good. But yeah, the thing I do want to talk about is writer Rita Mae Brown, who is a badass. Born November 28th, 1944 in Hanover, Pennsylvania, to a married man and a teenage mother that he was having an affair with. She was left at an orphanage and raised by her mother's cousin.
Whoa.
Ordinarily, I don't get into weird side details like that, but there's a narrative that I'm constructing.
Sure.
Rita Mae Brown is a novelist, poet, screenwriter, feminist, civil rights activist. She attended the University of Florida, but was expelled for participating in the civil rights movement, which cool on its own. She hitchhiked to New York City in 1964, where she received a degree in classics and English from New York University. In 1968, she received a certification in cinematography from the New York School of Visual Arts. And apparently during this time when she was in New York getting all of this education, she was homeless for a lot of it.
Wow.
Yeah, right? She later went on to receive a PhD in literature from the Union Institute and University in Cincinnati, Ohio, and a doctorate in political science from the Institute for Policy Studies in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And she spent most of her life, up until like into the 2000s, as a progressive advocate. She was involved in the American Civil Rights Movement in the 60s. She participated in the anti-war movement, the feminist movement, and the gay liberation movement, and pushed for inclusion even within the progressive groups that she worked with, to the extent that she left Betty Friedan's National Organization for Women because of its attempts to distance itself from gay and lesbian organizations. And she's like, fuck that, I'm not going to work with you because you're not inclusive enough.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's so good, right?
Hell yeah.
And she's done that work essentially her whole life. And she's written a lot. I actually bought one of her books off the back of doing this research because she's such an interesting person. And she's done a ton of novel writing and screenwriting and various other forms of creative work throughout her life. And in 1982, and this is one of the reasons I'm fucking mad at Slumber Party Massacre, she wrote a screenplay that was intended to parody the slasher genre called Sleepless Nights. And I don't know, I did a bunch of digging. I don't know if she sold it or how the studio got a hold of it. But it was taken out of her hands and rewritten into what became the fucking Slumber Party Massacre.
Oh.
Against her wishes.
Now I know
So
why
it's
you're
like
so
a
upset.
studio intervention crap. Yeah.
And I'd like to find the original script. I might look for it. But she intended it as like a subversive takedown of the sorority girl serial killer kind of genre of films from the 70s and early 80s.
Oh, that's incredible.
And somehow the producers of this got a hold of her script and turned it into the Slumber Party Massacre, which I'm mad about.
Yeah. No, that makes so much more sense.
Yep.
Wow, I wonder if there's any access anywhere to that original screenplay.
I'm going to dig for it. And if there is, then I'll pass it along so maybe it gets linked in the description of when this gets published.
And maybe we'll do a Brainworms episode on it.
That'd be so awesome.
That could be interesting. It'd be weird to do a screenplay.
Yeah.
We will have to talk about it. Anyway, but yeah, throughout her life, she's won various awards, including an Emmy for Outstanding Writing in 1982 and 1985, and the Pioneer
Fucking talk much, buddy?
No, it's my first time. The Pioneer Award for
Be gentle,
Lifetime
Kane. It's his
Achievement
first time.
at the Lambda Awards in 2015.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and she's still kicking, apparently. She's still like around. And on the opposite side, because I gushed for quite a few minutes about Rita Mae Brown, cinematographer Stephen L. Posey, don't know, was born some fucking where at a time and a place. He's a ghost on the internet in terms of like biography and personal history, which is wild because he's done a lot of shit between the 70s and throughout the 90s. His only horror credits are The Howling, Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, Bloody Birthday, Jennifer, and Hellhole, only like one or two of which I've heard of. And then in the 90s, he did a lot of television directing. He worked on Hercules and Xena, which come up on the show a lot for some fucking reason.
Yeah, it's because Sam Raimi.
Right. And he also worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is horror adjacent.
No, it's horror. There was a movie.
Sure. He did work on the movie. He just worked on the television show.
Right.
That's all I have to say about that.
Excellent.
Excellent. Well, I guess I should talk about the actors.
If you fucking have to.
All All right, well.
I encourage you, Kane.
Don't encourage Kane.
So I do want to say that having watched this whole film all the way through, I decided that some of the actors I just didn't really care about.
Yeah. Some of the characters didn't matter.
Yeah. I'm going to focus on kind of the main folks.
The guy that killed that gorgeous snail, fuck that guy. That's my thoughts real quick.
Okay. All right. Well, first we've got Robin Still, really good at basketball, and she was Valerie Val Bates. She was actually sometimes credited as Robin Rochelle. She was born in Philadelphia on November 24th, 1961, and she eventually found her way to Hollywood after moving with her family as a child. She is a fucking tragedy, in case you were curious. She did the Slumber Party Massacre. She did The Being, as far as horror movies. And then she did like a lot of sorority type stuff, but roles eventually became really hard for her to come by. And she was an alcoholic. And so she actually committed suicide.
Oh, damn.
On February 9th, 1996 at the age of 34.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, a lot of the actors in this movie don't have a lot connected to them.
Yeah.
So our next is Michelle Michaels, all right? And she played Trish. It was her slumber party.
And she'll cry if she wants to.
Exactly. She was born in Las Vegas, Nevada. She's primarily known for the Slumber Party Massacre, Hero in the Terror, and Satan's Mistress. She also, in 1990, did Sorority House Massacre 2. So that's a...
It was Trish that opened the film with a nude scene, basically, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it moved to the basketball game, and then another nude scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was...
A lot of just gratuitous nudity for our pleasure.
Michelle Michaels was also involved in New Year's Evil and Demon Rage.
Demon Rage, sweet.
Yep.
Sounds like a beat-em-up game from the early 90s.
Yeah, like, I'm tired of Double Dragon. Could you throw Demon Rage in there?
Hell yeah.
Like, blow in the cartridge first.
I'm blowing your cartridge.
Oh.
I'll bet.
All right, so Jennifer Myers played Courtney Bates, which was Val Bates' sister.
Oh, yeah.
She was a model.
You know what I mean?
And she did Slumber Party Massacre and Sorority House Massacre. I couldn't find anything about her.
Yeah.
Nothing about where she was born or anything. There's nothing there.
Let's just assume that as a model, she did most of her work in modeling.
Sure.
Very little work in film, maybe.
One thing to note in this film is that she did sneak into her sister's room and go under her mattress to pull out a Playgirl magazine.
It's true.
With Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, that was crazy. The Italian Stallion made the cover.
Yeah. So that's
probably as close as we're going to get to Tony Danza being in a horror movie.
That was a sly reference.
Are you guys done?
No. Yeah.
All right. Next, we got Michael Viella as Russ Thorne.
Rusty Thorne.
Don't know much about him either. There's not much about where he was born or anything like that.
Whatever. None of this matters.
It does matter, Joe. Calm down. Aside from that, there's not much on this guy. He was in the Slumber Party Massacre and the Sorority House Massacre. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
He was consistent in the roles he accepted.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he shows up at conventions and stuff like that. And, once the world opens up again, I intend to go to some of those and
hell yeah,
just talk to some folks because I'd like to have a little bit more
explanation as to why.
Maybe.
Like, why did you do this?
What's wrong with you?
and then I went ahead and looked at Pamela Roylance, and she played the Coach Jana.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
She was born March 27th, 1952 in Seattle, Washington. And her horror movie credits are The Slumber Party Massacre.
Might I add real quick that their basketball uniforms reminded me of like street clothes from a JCPenney catalog?
Well, I don't think those were uniforms. I think that was just like practice gear.
That was practice gear? Because they weren't like the conventional basketball jerseys and shorts. They were like little outfits that just all appeared to be the same.
That was for the audience's viewing pleasure.
Okay, because that was interesting. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, but I don't think those were like their team uniforms. I think they were just gym clothes. But also they were meant to arouse the genitals of the audience, I think.
Yeah. Regardless, she just did the Slumber Party Massacre. She did do some television. She did the Nancy Drew, which kind of has horror elements to it. But yeah, that's it. And then I actually looked into JD's favorite person in the world, which is
Barbara Crampton?
Rig Kennedy.
Oh, right.
Who played
not the snail smashing
David Content
fucker.
But I'm not going to talk about that, even
Fuck
though he
that
did
guy.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about him because JD didn't like him.
I just don't want to talk about this movie.
I mean, it's too late. We're already talking about it.
I feel like that snail was real.
It was.
Oh, crap. I accidentally closed my recording without saving it. Fuck.
Anyhow. Yeah. There were a lot of interesting scenes in this movie where stuff happened. As far as the music is concerned,
it was composed on a Casio and sounded like it.
Yeah, it was composed on a Casio. Oh, hold on.
Yeah, I had it yesterday, but that was in the past.
I had it too.
Like the score, it could have been scored by Wesley Willis.
No, Wesley Willis would have done a much better job, I think.
I agree. I'm just saying.
It sounded like knockoff
there we
John
go.
Carpenter.
It was a Casio MT-40.
Like John Carpenter's dumb little brother, Blonde Carpenter.
It was bad.
God damn it, why didn't I say Jan Carpenter? That would have been so much funnier.
Too late now.
Well, you could always say it now and then paste it in later.
I'm better than that.
Yeah, but people would know.
God, Jan
They
Carpenter
feel it.
would have been so funny if I'd said
Anyhow,
that.
I didn't find shit about Ralph Jones either. The only Ralph Jones musician I found is a recording artist, and he was an American drummer.
American
best known
drummer.
For his best
Don't
known
play
for
that
his work.
beat.
Best known for his work with Bill Haley and his Comets.
Oh, no shit.
So he did like Rock Around the Clock and shit like that.
I'm not entirely convinced that was the same person.
It's not the same person. That's the only Ralph Jones I could find.
Okay, like I assumed you were smarter than that, but
Yeah, no, I'm aware that Ralph Jones probably wouldn't have recorded the whole fucking soundtrack on a Casio
on a
MT-40.
toy keyboard.
Yeah, I mean, it's technically not a toy.
I mean, it's not, but come on now.
The big thing is that it has 37 main keys, and then it has, like, on the left side, it has 15 smaller bass keys with 9 voice polyphony, which back in 82 wasn't terrible.
You're not going to catch like a Kraftwerk or a Devo playing a synthesizer like that.
No, probably not. So, I mean, that's what I'm working with here.
Do you think he wore a flower pot on his head while playing it?
No, I don't, actually. I think that's not the thing that he was doing.
Gotcha.
But that's it. The score was forgettable. You know,
It was doo-doo. That was the worst score of any film we've watched to date, I would say.
Yeah, it was trying really hard to be John Carpenter's score for Halloween and just fell on its face.
Yeah, couldn't.
Flat on its face.
And, even like the final girl in this movie just didn't hold the same power as Olivia Munn or Jamie Lee Curtis, like any other of the final girls. It just wasn't really there. You didn't really care. But you know what we need to talk about?
What?
Joe, JD, we need to talk about the special effects because there was a
weren't
severed
any.
hand.
I got you.
Joe?
What?
I got you.
All right, JD, tell us about the special effects.
So, the special effects were carried out by the legendary Mark Shostrom. He was uncredited, but very responsible for the horror effects we witnessed. And we've mentioned Mark a ton, throughout the course of this podcast. If you don't have a horror podcast without mentioning Mark Shostrom, then I wouldn't really say that it's actually a horror podcast. I don't know what you're talking about because he's an essential piece in a lot of horror films. Anyway, Mark was born in 1956, somewhere in the U.S. Mark's passion for horror and special effects grew after seeing The Bride of Frankenstein of 1935. I'm trying to present a little bit of a different angle here for Mark because he was a part of the film series we just spoke about, the Evil Dead series.
Right.
He was an
Never
integral part of that. So anyway, I once read that Mark grew up during the 70s spending time in Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, Sjostrom met Boris Karloff's wife, his widow, Evelyn, who befriended young Sjostrom and would regularly encourage him to pursue his love of horror film makeup.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was a really incredible little tidbit. Because, Boris Karloff is a master of horror film makeup. I mean, he did it for himself, essentially. From there, Sjostrom got linked up with the infamous John Carpenter, and pretty much from there, the rest is history. Carpenter kind of helped to kickstart his career. There's a whole slew of horror films Mark did makeup for. In case anyone forgot, I mentioned it again. He was involved in Evil Dead 2, Videodrome, Forbidden World, A Nightmare on Elm Street, a few of the Phantasm movies, Poltergeist 2, The Supernaturals. That is not about boobs, so cool it.
What?
I tried to throw a joke in there.
JD, nobody thought that.
No, he was doing a joke.
I was still thinking about the shower scene, so excuse my rotted. Yeah.
Okay.
That was one of the things about that film.
Lots of breasts and buttocks exposed for our pleasure.
There were, copious amounts of bosoms and butts to view. Anyway, Sjostrom also did the horror film makeup for To All a Good Night. That was in 1980, which was actually his first horror film credit. And while we're talking about women in horror films, and in particular behind the scenes and special effects, I would like to include that the art director of the Slumber Party Massacre was also a very talented lady by the name of Francesca Bartoccini. Francesca is best known for her work on Battle Beyond the Stars of 1980, Galaxy of Terror of 1981, and The Seventh Sign of 1988, which we've dropped in on the past.
Yeah. I kind of want to watch Galaxy of Terror for the show. It might be fun.
Hell yeah. I'm down for that. So, other than Sjostrom and Bartoccini, I believe it's pronounced, there were some prop effects people and different things like that. But, the main stuff, I would imagine Sjostrom was responsible for. That prosthetic hand Kane mentioned, that was actually a really excellent hand, and the color and viscosity of the blood was pretty spot on. So you knew somebody with solid pedigree in horror was involved. Mm-hmm. As cheesy as the film was, there that aspect of the blood was pretty tight.
GD, hey GD.
Yes, sir.
Would you say that special effects artist did a really good hand job?
I see what you did there.
Wait, what? What do you mean?
Wait, Kane, I'm going to explain how jokes work real quick.
You're going to explain to me how jokes work?
Joe made a comment about the handiwork of Mark Sjostrom because he made a prosthetic hand in the Slumber Party Massacre.
Okay.
And then a hand job is also a sex act. So it was funny because it meant both of those things at the same time.
Oh, no. Okay. I got it. Okay.
God, we're fucking dumb.
I mean, we're not dumb.
We're not dumb.
Well, JD, were you done? I'm sorry. I derailed your special effects explanation with my dumb joke.
Well, you have this long drill, okay? And there's a few moments where I would say that the damage that drill was supposed to have done, I feel like a drill of that magnitude would produce basically the entire contents of one's blood would come out of their body with the size of that bit. But, I felt a little cheated.
Right.
That's all.
And I know how much you love just as much fake blood as possible in a film.
I do. I enjoy when a film is just bursting and gushing with fake blood. That's kind of my, my comfort zone in horror film.
Right.
So I did my best with this one, and what they lacked in blood, they made up with in butt cheeks. So it was balanced, I would say, against each other, but I would have preferred less gratuitous nudity and more fake blood.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can behind that.
And possibly more prosthetic limbs because of the quality of that hand. I would have appreciated a full arm or at least an arm up to the elbow, if not to the armpit.
Sure. When your murderer is using a penetrative weapon to do his murdering with, you're not going to get a lot of limb severing, I don't feel.
I gotta go ahead and throw this in here real quick. The pizza delivery guy with those dark red spots over his eyes and then like the fake blood surrounding the eyes, that effect was shit. They dropped the ball.
That sucked.
And I don't normally come out and you know, I remember, whacking that snake and spasms and...
Phrasing.
I'm going to try to throw masturbation jokes in whenever possible when talking about a movie like this.
Whacking that snake and spasms.
We're talking about an 80s film, a very exploitive 80s film. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, masturbation joke is at hand. I tried.
Fucking swear. All right.
Yep.
All right. Can we move on to our personal experience with the film?
Yeah, let's do it.
Joe, just do it. Joe, just do it.
I hated this movie. It was exploitative in a way that was just kind of unpleasant. Eye-banging its high school age in universe.
Yeah, because they definitely weren't.
Yeah. They were definitely played by adults.
Well into their 20s and possibly 30s.
Easily. Deep into their 20s, at least. And it was exploitative, which, if a movie is interesting and exploitation-y, then, maybe. But it was exploitative and also boring.
What do you mean it was boring?
It was just tedious to watch. The script, which again, the rewrites and just ruination of what was probably a very good script.
Yeah.
To turn it into the fucking Slumber Party Massacre, the actors were just barely acting. They could have just been reading off of a teleprompter for the level of enthusiasm that they were putting into their performances. And I'm inclined to blame the direction for that, but I can't speak to, because most of them really didn't do much after this. I can't really speak to the skill level of the performers. It might have just been the actors, I don't know. But nobody really seemed like they were trying all that hard. It was kind of the bland, disaffected line reads of a soap opera through a lot of it, I felt.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It was not great.
It wasn't great. And the Jan Carpenter score... Just wanted to get that joke in. Nobody really felt like they were bringing their C game to this movie. Nobody really felt like they were making an effort to make the Slumber Party Massacre.
Right.
And the end result was like watching oatmeal that also disrespected women.
Pretty heavily.
Yeah, if Andrew Dice Clay was like a bowl of plain mashed potatoes somehow. That was the experience of watching, for me, the Slumber Party Massacre. I had a bad time.
Okay.
I think that was the first time anybody's put Andrew Dice Clay and a bowl of mashed potatoes in the same sentence.
I think our listeners skew older, so they're probably going to get that reference.
Maybe. Joe, do you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay. JD, why don't you tell us your personal experience with the movie?
So my first personal experience with this film, I was a young teenage boy, and I'm quite certain I probably didn't make it, maybe I'd say about 3 minutes into the opening scene. I'm sure I tried rewatching it, but I'm pretty sure I just stuck with the opening scene.
That's all you needed at that point. Got you where you wanted to go.
At 13 to 14.
Listeners, this was before the internet.
Yeah, before the internet, and so this was just...
This may have even been before, scrambled Cinemax.
It was.
So, okay. I've seen bits and pieces of this film as a young person, definitely teenage person. So really, as an adult, this was my first viewing of the film, all the way through where I'm, actually, following it past certain scenes. And I found it to be, really trying to be a Black Christmas. It was kind of trying to be Halloween. It was kind of trying to be a few different films of the subgenre in horror. It was very slasher-ish, but the slasher was, I think, a little too visible.
Yeah.
In the other films, I mean, I understand in Halloween, there was Michael Myers and But it's just, I don't know, like maybe it's the effect of having a mask, having like the identity of the slasher being, undisclosed makes it a little more interesting to me. Taking that element out of it just made it very drab and, uninteresting, unappealing.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, really, I appreciated, like I had mentioned during the special effects segment, that, the prosthetic, and I will just leave it at that, because that was really the only prosthetic that shined was a fake hand, and that's sad, because they had so many other opportunities to exhibit some gore.
Yeah, they could have done something pretty cool even with the pizza guy, and they just didn't.
They could have, yeah, and I know that
with the eyeballs drilled out.
Exactly, just the...
Oh, yeah, I remember that part.
There was no depth to the sockets. It was just like, you could see that there were these visibly darker bits probably glued onto this kid's eyelids, and then they were doused with fake blood. So it was like, it wasn't concave, it wasn't like an empty socket that was dug in. I understand CGI was not an option for that sort of thing, but like they had abilities beyond, like, maybe even recreate a socket and do a close-up where you don't have to showcase the actor. Just do something other than the way they addressed it. And when they showed him laying on the ground after he was, collapsed at the door after delivering the pizza, it was just quite disappointing. And
I mean, we've watched movies from the 60s and 70s that had substantially lower budgets.
Right. And a stronger showing in the prosthetics.
Yeah, that had way better looking kills.
Sure.
Well, I mean, it's like the telephone lady at the beginning. The hole in her forehead was just makeup.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking like prosthetic makeup. It doesn't look like the hole in her head. It looked like he carved a perfect circle on the front of her forehead, but barely broke skin. Like it just didn't look great at all.
Yeah, they were very topical effects. Like,
yes,
they weren't dimensional at all. They just looked like they sat right on the surface, and there was barely fake blood over them. So,
which is funny because the machete wounds looked good. Maybe they were reaching really hard with the drill.
Sure.
And they should have just had him coming at him with a machete, because the machete wounds looked pretty good.
Well, and I think, if you look at the course of this style of slasher film, I think the more common weapon and the more common understanding of how to create a wound came from a machete. A drill was a little bit, pioneering in that respect. Like, was there a killer that used a drill before this film? I think, knives and other, strangulation and plastic bags and different shit like that was the tool of the trade for most slashers prior to this film. So a drill, I guess I am, in a sense, tipping my cap to the idea of introducing a new potential deadly weapon.
But maybe not doing a terrible job with creating the wounds that it's supposed to have.
Sure.
But yeah, so do you have anything to add about your personal experience? Like, what did you think of this movie overall?
Overall, it was a shitty movie, but it was entertaining in the respect that I feel like some energies kind of like bring you back in a nostalgic way to that your youth, your young teenage years. And I think like any movie from this era sort of, I mean, I wasn't a teenager in that early of a time. I'm not that old, but I guess like when I saw these movies, they were, past their release dates and stuff like that. So you're seeing them, and like it was kind of like exciting to see, a movie like that. It was just like, oh wow, crazy, people are being killed, and it just looked more real and believable when you're like a little kid. But when you see it as an adult, you're just kind of like, oh wow, that's just bad.
Yeah. How about you, Kane? You got anything to say about this?
Yeah. I had never seen this film until we watched it.
When you watched it in completion from beginning to end?
Yeah, in totality. Yeah. I watched the entire film with you guys.
You weren't audibly snoring into your microphone during some of it?
All right, cat's out of the bag now. All right, so...
Kane fell asleep.
He did.
I got to the point where the snail killer got his comeuppance.
That dude shook me out of my game, too. I'm not going to lie. That made me mad.
And then I woke up right when Trish and Val and Courtney are the last survivors. So I think I missed a good chunk of this movie.
Yeah, like there was a point where you hadn't said anything for a while.
I think you missed about 80% of it, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I think Kane fell asleep. And then I said, hey, Kane. And you didn't say anything. And JD and I were just like, whatever. And we just went back to watching the movie.
And I kind of remember we had some fun moments together while viewing it, just...
Yeah, we had some fun riffs here and there, I think.
Yep.
I don't remember those.
Because you were asleep.
So yeah, my personal opinion of this film is that it's very forgettable.
Which it is.
Nothing in it really changed horror or stuck out, aside from using the drill as a weapon.
Fun idea, bad execution.
Yeah, but I will say that if we look at movies like this, like not a great movie, and we kind of focus on the fact that when we give opportunities, when we make it important that everyone has the opportunity to speak their piece in the form of media, of any art form, games, anything, and we open that door and let everyone come through, the sharing of ideas and things like that, it's only going to get better.
Oh, yeah.
I agree. Right.
If we look at the movies that women today are putting out versus what they were allowed to, and that's the important thing to know.
Yeah, because
what they were allowed to put out.
Because this movie definitely seems like there was a lot of a studio or a producer saying, like, this is the movie.
Well, no, Amy was the producer.
Okay.
Yep.
She was the director. She was the producer. The thing was that, like you had said, Rita Mae Brown was supposed to be a spoof.
Yeah.
And they shot it as a straightforward slasher. But the problem was that all of the stuff that was in the script was geared towards making fun of slashers. So because they took that straightforward horror movie direction with it, with the source material being a comedy, the movie didn't know what the fuck it was supposed to be. And so it just ends up being this bland, boring thing. But I'm glad it exists because this was just another stepping stone to giving more people access to producing the media that we're consuming today.
Sure.
And that's going to be, I have to look at that as the positive. I can't lampoon this movie. I only saw like the first 20 minutes and the last 5 minutes of this movie. So I can't lampoon it, but I can say that from what I saw, it wasn't great. Good, obviously. If it had been great, if I had had fun, I probably wouldn't have fallen asleep.
Right.
But I do appreciate the point of it being significant over the scope of horror films because of who made it and when it was made,
Exactly. Well, folks, if you watch the Slumber Party Massacre,
don't.
Let us know what you think. You can find us at WeGiveYouBrainworms.com, as well as most of the places that podcasts live. Send us a message with the Yell at Us button on the website, or even better, go to our YouTube and comment.
Yeah.
Engage with us, even if it's just to tell us how stupid we are.
And if you're a listener on something like Spotify or a podcast host, go to our YouTube channel, like it, subscribe to it, do all the things, because I want that.
Yeah, we're doing that for Joe more than anything. Because there's no way our YouTube is monetized.
That's true. I just want to get those numbers,
Yeah.
I'm going to get that YouTube plaque someday.
Last I checked, we're at 71.
Yeah, we're definitely growing slowly, which is good.
Help increase our dopamine.
Thank you guys for taking the time and listening to us. We're happy to keep talking about this stuff. We also warn you against forgetting to like, follow, and subscribe.
And click the bell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
do
all
that
that
shit.
stuff. All right, guys, I think we're going to call it
I think
a
we're
night.
done here.
Let's call it a slumber
Bye.
party massacre. Pork chop sandwiches!